Hi, welcome to a video all about yapping. Yeah, if you look through my channel, I really have not been uploading a lot lately, and that's due to changes that I'm making on the channel. However, one of the reasons why I stopped uploading so much is because I ran out of content to make. Sort of. You see, most of the content I make is based on discussions surrounding the game, and while I did have a lot of ideas, most of them I felt like they didn't really have enough to make them into a full video. So I decided to grab all of them, regardless if they are good or not, and just talk about them in this video alone. So, enjoy! Time-gated achievements have always existed in video games, and Runescape is no different. The biggest time-gated achievement is probably the anniversary capes. As your account becomes older, you unlock a cape cosmetic with how old your account is. But there's the cool part. Unless your account was created in 2001, tough luck, because you won't ever get the newest cape. Yeah, needless to say, if you haven't figured out by the title by now, I'm not a huge fan of time-based rewards and achievements. Being punished by not being able to obtain a reward purely because I wasn't born yet is not exactly what makes me want to play a game. I've been very open to criticizing FOMO-related stuff, especially when it comes to inconsequential stuff like cosmetics, and honestly, this is no different for me. Obviously, one could argue that if it is inconsequential, why am I complaining about it? But at the same time, effort was actually put in to give this to the players, so if effort was put in, then why put restrictions on who can get it? You could just do it like old school RuneScape does, where regardless of account age, you get all of the rewards celebrating the game anyway, even if you weren't there when the game was created. Now, while I am going to an extreme here and give the example of the account age and the reward cape that comes with it, that's not the only thing I mean when I say that time-gated achievements suck. To simply put, I don't find waiting a very engaging part of gameplay. One of the things I disliked the most about RuneScape 3 was especially dailies and daily-related stuff. Let's take the museum statues, for example. Nowadays, they are changed, so you can do them whenever, but before, you could only make one of them every week, and you needed to do like 30 of them for a comp cape achievement, meaning you essentially need to log into the game every week for 30 weeks in order to get this done. But now that they are unrestricted, we ask ourselves, why were they even restricted to begin with? And that's exactly my point. Why time-gate things to begin with, when we don't actually need them to be time-gated? So many times I see time-gated stuff that you need to work towards that simply don't really need to be time-gated at all, and RuneScape 3, let me tell you, they loved to do this. RuneScape 3 has so many time-gated stuff, especially when it comes to their D&Ds and dailies. From Gothixian caches, rewarding the divination outfit, but realistically you can only do 2 caches a day, the god statues you can build that award a shizzle, but you only get to do them once a month. Look, I get that the activities themselves are capped due to the amount of XP they give, but why also cap the rewards? If you're gonna cap them to the huge amounts of XP, don't put rewards like those behind them either, make them a pure XP thing. And look, it's not like I even enjoy these types of daily escape things, because I don't really think that they are good for the game, since, showering players with XP and then, make them log every day just to do some activity, I don't really consider that to be very good, engaging or fun gameplay. You're just trying to bait players to log in every day to boost your player count, so you can say that you have a lot of players, when in reality players are just logging in because they feel obligated to do something, given that something is so good that they really can't pass up. But that does not make fun gameplay. And sure, I will admit, sometimes there's no way around time-gated stuff, it's part of everything, we're talking about time, right? And, as much as account age rewards annoy me, for example, at least you can say that you'll get them someday. Obviously, as I've said, there are other ways of doing it that don't involve the time restriction, but still, you will get them. But so much stuff in RuneScape 3 just does not have any sense to be time-gated. The only pass I would give to this is honestly farming, since it's a skill and you don't really need to wait 1 year to collect your rewards, but everything else really does need to be looked at. I am glad to see Jagex shy away from the daily escape and from the time-gatedness of things, that they have been doing for the past few years, but they should also look back and try and fix some of them, like they did with the museum statues. Although at the same time they have been doing a lot of limited time events, so I guess we kinda substituted one evil for another. We substituted time gated stuff with FOMO stuff, so it's not exactly better, but I guess it's different. The worst part, however, to me, is that due to stuff being time gated, it just makes a lot of the rewards very useless, and you can look no further than player-owned ports. This is pretty much exclusively a time-gated activity, and with decent rewards at that. Rewards that most players actually don't bother getting due to how long it actually takes to get them, which means that they're actually not that viable at all. And they have achievements that require for you to actually do X amount of trips or to go X amount of distance, which isn't a very good thing either, because again, all the minigame involves is waiting around for months until you complete it. Regardless if it's RuneScape or not, time-gated stuff, it's something that I will always, and I mean always, dislike. With how long-term RuneScape is as a game, it was only a question of time until players started trying to go for a completionist approach. As a result, RuneScape introduced things like the boss logs, a collection system to track if you have gotten all of the drops from a boss. While it was first introduced in RuneScape 3, old school RuneScape improved on it and decided to release it as the collection log. A complete log covering everything from boss drops, raids, slayer drops, clue scrolls, minigames, and pretty much any miscellaneous drop or thing that you could unlock in the game. Now, RuneScape 3 does have more collection logs than just the boss log. However, contrary to old school RuneScape, it's all over the place. It's a bit of a mystery to me, especially considering the success that old school RuneScape log has had, that RuneScape 3 never really got an update to put them all in one place. To be fair, as far as achievements go, it's all in one place, although the UI there could be a bit better, but you know, that to me shows that they are capable of putting all of the things related to one thing in one place, unified. You know, much like how Jagex did again with achievements, so why they haven't done it with logs already is a bit confusing. This is even more confusing given the fact that RuneScape 3 has way more reward systems that are somewhat related to collection logs, or could be considered part of it. Things like, you know, the Manifold area, which is an area system on its own, area reward system on its own, or the Slayer Soul Lock thing for the player-owned Slayer dungeon. You know, they are all things that all play into the same style of having logs to fill in the game, and yet, again, they are all over the place, completely separate from each other. I couldn't even tell you from the top of my head all of the things like that exist in the game. RuneScape 3 would benefit much more from having a unified collection log system, much like old school RuneScape does, especially considering all of the benefits they can bring to the game. I'm not gonna go over them because I already did a video on collection logs and stuff like that. I think that I did. I'm pretty sure I've already talked about this before, but yeah, they can be really good, but you know, they can put attention on updates that, or at least pieces of content that people don't do too much, which means that Jagex then can actually get feedback on how to fix them and can actually pay attention to them. And I'm not even saying that you need necessarily new rewards for the collection log, or that you need new incentives or anything. I just want a menu where I can see everything I can obtain as a drop, be it tradable from pretty much anywhere in the game, be it Slayer, a minigame, a clue scroll, a boss, whatever. These logs pretty much already exist, you know, so I think that the next logical step is to unify them, and I think Jagex should have already done that a long time ago. Okay, so this one might come off as a bit weird, since plugins have been a staple since pretty much old school RuneScape has been released, but yes, I did find plugins to actually be a bad thing for the game, so let's actually talk about it. First of all, I want to make it clear I'm not talking about the customization plugins. Those will always be a good thing, since it allows players to customize the UI the way they want, and even RuneScape 3 allows for a lot of customization in terms of the UI. I'm more talking about plugins that directly affect gameplay, things like the Clue Scroll Solver, the Quest Helper, and the Zolra Helper, things of the sorts. So, why did I found those to be a problem? Well, first of all, I come from the OS Beta era of the game, an era where to get access to some of the plugins you actually had to pay extra if you wanted them. This obviously is a bad thing, as you shouldn't have to pay to get access to plugins that made the gameplay better or affected gameplay, and eventually it led to exploitation. In fact, it was due to that exploitation and competition between plugin makers that exploitation even started, which, you know, when it came to what they offered, ever since then, Jagex pretty much started putting restrictions on what plugins could be, between plugins that would allow you to check the health of farming patches without the need of using the spell from the Lunar spellbook, or one-click skilling activities. Third-party plugins were really starting to go from useful to just game-breaking, to the point where most content in the game was completable without even having to try or pay attention. This eventually culminated with the Zulrah Helper plugin that showed you on screen what to pray, where to stay and stuff like that, which essentially just led Jagex to be more vigilant about plugins. Just as of note, the current Zulrah Helper plugin is actually allowed by Jagex. I'm talking about the old one. But even then, even nowadays where most plugins are only considered useful, I still didn't like them too much, and the reason has to actually do with how Runescape is laid out. Runescape is a game all about progression, and that progression is done through rewards that unlock more content and make other content better to do. So it feels very cheap to not have to earn the ability to auto-complete clue scrolls pretty much. It feels cheap to be able to do all of the quests with an helper that makes most of the quests thoughtless, even if you've never done them before. In a way, these feel like rewards you would unlock after already engaging with the content, not before. It also has a problem that most of these plugins come turned on by default on RuneLite, so it's not even like you need to put effort into turning them on. That to me was always the major issue with a lot of these plugins, and why, despite being enjoyable to use, they just felt really wrong. You never needed to actually earn them. You don't need to do anything to unlock them, you just have them, and that obviously feels bad, especially when it comes to new content. If the game is designed around unlocking rewards that make content better, rewards that make content better without needing to be unlocked feel like cheating. In a way, I don't even know what's the point of introducing clue scrolls into the game when most players are never gonna solve it even once. They will just have the plugin telling them what to do. It's not that players have figured out the answer and now they just know the answer and remember where they need to go, so they don't actually need to think about it, it's that they are just told the answer. Obviously, as I've mentioned earlier, these plugins are pretty useful, so it's not like I'm saying we should ban them, nor am I saying Jagex should remove them until you have like completed 10,000 clue scrolls or something. However, it does go against that core aspect of RuneScape, and I think it's fair to think about the impact that it has in the game and how players actually perceive the game. JMods have talked about how the Quest Helper plugin is actually a good thing, especially if you've already done the quest and are just going to do it again on another account. And now that we do have Jagex accounts, maybe that will be a thing they offer in the future, where if you completed one quest in your account, you will have the helper, or at least the ability to complete it or something like that, in another account, because sometimes repeating accounts, or repeating quests rather, is kind of annoying. And I get it. One of the main arguments is that, well, you can just look up a guide on YouTube, or at least look up a guide on the wiki or something, and while that is true, that involves the active decision of going to look for a guide. Using these plugins does not. They are just there for you, so it's not entirely the, game thing of you actually having to actively engage with them, you just passively have them. We also have to question, is the difference between banned plugins like the old Zulrah Helper and plugins like Clue Scroll Solver, is there actually any difference between those? It seems to me that sometimes it's not so much about what the plugin actually is, but what about the piece of content that it affects in-game. So PVM plugins that trivialize bosses, since PVM is more highly regarded and more directly impacts power creep and the economy, are not allowed, while the Clue Scroll one, even though it trivializes clue scrolls, even though they both are technically the same, they both trivialize the piece of content they are about. Since the outcome ends up actually being different, we actually do end up perceiving these plugins different as well. Should we? Well, I don't know, but it's an interesting thing to discuss. Definitely, I don't want these plugins to go away. They are a core of experience of the game nowadays and have made the game much better, and especially have pushed Jagex to also improve the original client, so they have been an overall very positive impact in the game. But some of them, going against some of the core aspects of the game, was the reason I kinda disliked them. I still don't find them game-breaking, by the way, nor do I want them to be removed by any means. I really do have to reiterate that because people do feel very attached to plugins, so I'm not saying that they should be banned. I'm just more questioning how players engage with them and how players' mentality has shifted towards certain aspects of the game. While this is a player-led game, it's not every time that players want what's best for its future, so I think that we should always be aware of the trends and where the game is going and what players think is best for the game and what might actually be best for the game. One thing I've been hearing lately from old school RuneScape is that the modern drop tables are ruined. This happens especially when a new monster comes out and the drops are relatively low in value. This is a problem mostly of two sides. The first problem is that nowadays we equate good drop tables with average GP value per kill. This makes all drop tables into pure numbers, one which can be compared to others to the point where there will be an ideal monster to be killed when time, supplies and average drop value are all taken into consideration. The problem with this is that it kills the uniqueness of certain drop values and whatever drops they have to offer. Now there is one thing that actually changes this, and that's the rare rewards. Rare rewards are the unique drops monsters tend to have. Usually they are much rarer and have a much higher GP value than your regular drops. This is what makes players choose certain monsters over the others. For the most part, the major issue with drop tables seems to have is actually more related to perception. There was a time where good drop tables were all about unique rare rewards. While I do think that drop tables focused on GP are needed, I think the game has too many of them and relies too much on stuff like skilling supplies and alchables at this point, especially when they already have unique rewards on the table as well. It's always going to be hard to balance drop tables to be worth your time every single time, but as far as bosses go, I wouldn't mind to go back to the God Wars Dungeon days, where most drops are maybe enough to break even and the rare drops is where the good GP is at. In fact, I would actually argue that the reason why both scales and rare drops from Zulrah, for example, are worth so little when it comes to the value of rare drops is that the general drop table was worth so much GP that most players saw rare drops not as a must that you need to get to profit, but rather as an extra on top of an already amazing GP per hour. Either way, it's a bit weird to see players complaining about newer drop tables not being as OP as some we already have in the game, when the ones we already have in the game being so OP is exactly why we can't keep constantly having more powerful and valuable drop tables enter the game. Maybe what we need is just to focus more PVM on the value of getting specific drops from monsters rather than those drops just being pure GP. Or you can just create an Iron Man, one of the two. Could the Enraged System work on old school RuneScape? This is something I considered a while ago for fun until I realized we kind of already have a system like that. Tombs of a Mascot. Tombs of a Mascot is the third raid released into old school RuneScape, and it already has an enraged system where the raid gets progressively harder. Now, sure, you might be thinking it's not the same since the invocations are actual mechanical changes, but the OA also has the stat increase that Enraged usually has in RuneScape 3 as well. In fact, it has even more stats increase that RuneScape 3 Enraged has. You know, but okay. That's not a proper enraged system like RuneScape 3. In RuneScape 3, enraged systems is pretty much only as good as the streaking done alongside it. And you're right, but then let's try and take a bit of a look if it would actually work or not. For the most part, I think it simply wouldn't. While both games rely on RNG in terms of combat, old school RuneScape relies far more on it. RuneScape 3 has far more flexibility when dealing damage and healing from it. You have to account for the percentage differences in ability rotation, summons, invention perks, stats boosts, and so on, all of which interact with each other and change the percentage difference of each other. You also have plenty of defensive abilities that allow you to avoid damage or simply even heal from it. All of these are little things that make streaking far more fun and that it would be in old school RuneScape. Even then, in RuneScape 3, some high enrages already require a big amount of RNG to be pulled off. Imagine that in old school RuneScape. Old school RuneScape simply does not have the same flexibility that RuneScape 3 has, so while it would be maybe fun to do for a few kills, the RNG would just become really annoying to deal with. And we already have an example of it even not working again, DOA. I know it's not exactly the same, but one of the bosses, it's called Baba, and Baba can hit through prayer. So, you know, if Baba just decides to have good RNG, you get absolutely smacked and there is nothing you can do about it. Now imagine that for every single boss. And that even leads me to another problem, the protection prayers. Since most enrages in RuneScape 3 don't actually significantly alter the mechanics as you progress, it's mostly about dealing damage and outpacing your demise from the damage you get dealt. But in old school RuneScape you can just pray against most things, meaning most content would just become longer to do due to the RNG of the damage you deal, not necessarily riskier. And if you decide to go through, well, every monster can hit through protection prayers if you're doing Enraged, again, you really don't have a lot of defensive options like RuneScape 3 does, meaning, yet again, it would just become every boss is Baba, which is not something that you might want. Overall, as much thought as I gave it, it just seems that right now it really doesn't matter where you grab it from. Old school RuneScape Enraged just isn't that great of an idea, at least at the moment. Maybe in the future with, you know, more combat depthness it will be, but for now, just not something I would like to see in the game. Streaking, however, that could work. Streaking would still involve RNG, sure, but it's more about not making mistakes, to have a trip last longer, than the boss becoming harder. Streaking could be a fun mechanic to have in old school RuneScape, but at the same time, I have no idea what you would essentially be able to do in terms of rewards and drops. And, you know, how do you deal with all of them being distributed? Since, you know, the difficulty increase isn't actually gradual like Enraged, the drops can't be either. Honestly, I would love to have the mechanic just for fun, even without any rewards attached to it, so maybe one day we can see a boss with a streak mechanic, we'll see. As far as Enraged goes, however, I don't see any hope for at least the near future. Old school RuneScape is known for being a player-led game. This is reflected in the polls that the game has. One argument that I keep hearing, however, is that they are useless since everything just passes the poll. Now, I have done a video on polling, so I won't be repeating what I said there, but I do want to explain why is it that most things just seem to pass the poll and nothing ever fails. While yes, there is a culture of just voting yes to everything, that is because most players actually don't care or want to put effort into balancing, designing and leading the game. They just want new content to be fed to them. And that is completely fair. Ultimately, they are paying Jagex to play their game and get content. They aren't paying to be on Jury Duty every week or be game designers. They're paying to play the game and get new content. However, there is just one reason why this happens. For the most part, the reason why polls having nothing fails is a much more common occurrence nowadays is simply down to the fact that Jagex has gotten really good at applying feedback before the content is even polled. Before, Jagex would have an idea, work on it, and then poll it. That would lead to maybe wasted dev time, which Jagex didn't want, specifically with such a limited dev team, because polls could fail. Nowadays, Jagex comes up with a piece of content, works on the design to show players, tweaks the design, and only then, when it feels satisfactory, does the concept get polled. This usually means that when a concept is polled, the concept was already sufficiently worked on with the community, leading the polls to be very favorable. If I'm voting on a thing I want in the game, and I gave feedback to Jagex for them to tweak something and they do it before polling, of course by the time polling comes around, I'm already considering the update favorably, since the update already changed something that I like more. That's why most stuff nowadays just passes the poll. To simply put, Jagex has become really good at developing concepts before presenting them to us, and working with us to poll stuff that will most likely pass, so they don't actually waste their time. They don't even need to work on it either. They have developed systems to actually just work on the design of the system before even actually starting any actual work in it. Are there perhaps other issues with polling? Sure, but again, that's not what I'm trying to talk about here, so I'm gonna essentially just leave it, and you can go and watch my other video about polling. Fashionscape is a huge part of the game, and as such, Jagex has made plenty of cosmetics available throughout the years. While giving players options is a good idea, to a point we need to question how many cosmetics is too many, especially when some of them vary so much in terms of quality. Cosmetic bloat is a problem that starts arising once your game has so many cosmetics players don't even know what cosmetic they are looking at or that it even existed. For the most part, one thing needs to be said, contrary to a lot of other games, Jagex has actually been pretty consistent with the art style cosmetics have had over the years. While, of course, there are differences, especially in quality, especially because the game has spanned quite a lot of years, you could very easily have made stuff that is so artistically out there that it just doesn't even feel like Runescape anymore. And as far as that goes, they've done a good job. However, to a degree, I kinda do feel that it's somewhat a detriment a little bit. Look, during the Yak Truck events, we were showered with cosmetics, and to simply put, I think a lot of them just kinda look like normal character customizations. That does make me wonder if one of the objectives Jagex has is to essentially just fuse the character customization with the cosmetic customization screen. That would actually make things far more coherent and consistent, which would actually be welcomed, because outside of that, it's a bit weird to have cosmetics that could have honestly very easily been options of clothing at Thessalia. Obviously, another issue that the cosmetic bloat arises or brings is how many cosmetics are simply unlockable, while you have a huge lack of options when you actually first enter the game. You should 100% earn cosmetics and customization options as you play, but I think that right now the scale is maybe too much on the side of lacking cosmetics early game, while maybe having a little bit too many late game. And the major issue with this is that when you actually enter the game, it's not even so much about the cosmetics, it's about the character customization that you're first asked about. But outside of that, character customization really isn't touched all that much by Jagex. It's almost all about cosmetics, which is why I said earlier that it's actually better if they actually try to fuse both screens so you could do both character customization and have the cosmetics customization all in the same screen, so you have a unified one-stop shop that is easy to understand for everything. While I did trash Yak Truck earlier, one of the good things it actually had was how focused the cosmetics were. They actually had a theme all throughout all of them rather than just random cosmetics because Battle Pass. One last thing I actually want to mention about this topic, and usually this part kind of gets forgotten about, is the in-game cosmetics, the ones you actually get as items rather than customization options on the customization menu. There are mostly equipable things coming from clue scrolls, and honestly I wish there was a better integration between them and the customization menu, because a lot of the items you equip, they are equipped for essentially fashionscape purposes, but they're not the same as the cosmetic customization. It's actually really hard to integrate both sides, aside maybe from keepsake keys, and honestly I don't think Jagex just wants to throw keepsake keys at the player, so yeah. Maybe a system where I can have one-stop shop for character customizations, regardless if it's a token you unlock, an item you have from a clue scroll, or character customization, or whatever you have. Again, trying to unify all of these fashionscape related things under one menu, under one thing, could do so much for the current customization of the game. As far as the number of cosmetics is concerned, and the cosmetic bloat as a result, despite the Yak Truck shenanigans, I actually feel like Jagex has been somewhat decent at introducing them. It would be actually very easy for them to just throw a cosmetic at you every week and not care about anything else if they really wanted. But I'm glad they are taking it somewhat slow and they are diversifying where you do get them from. Some of them are earnable, others are premium, others are unlocked from certain events that they do, quests, you name it. That's a really good thing. Having too many cosmetics can lead to players feeling like their customization doesn't actually matter because it doesn't really stand out, and it can lead to a lot of player confusion as well when seeing others in game, and overall just decrease the visual fidelity, especially as far as gear is involved in the game, since you know, nowadays you just have a bunch of overrides, so it's hard to know what gear other players actually have. So, you know, as long as a lot of these things are being considered in the game, I think that the game is in good state regarding cosmetics. Although again, I will say there are other issues to address as far as cosmetics go. I feel that, you know, currently, while the game might feel like it does have a lot of cosmetics, I honestly thought when starting to research this topic that it had way more, considering that the game has been around for what it's like 23 years at this point. I'm surprised it actually doesn't have that many. By skilling up, I meant a primary place to do your skilling at. In this case, I mostly mean Fort 4-in-3. Why do I consider Fort 4-in-3 a skilling hub? Well, amongst all of the places you can do skilling at the fort is usually the best option in most of the cases that it offers. However, why is that big of an issue? Well, it isn't. Kind of, at least not in principle. Skilling hubs are normal to exist in the game. It's good to have a place where players can gather and train their skills. So why did I say that it might be bad? Well, one of the issues hubs tend to have is that they overpower everything else in the world. This can lead players to ask for more buffs to the hub and ask for more skills to be made viable. They're, you know, making the hub essentially a one-stop shop for anything skilling related. This just spells the demise of anything skilling related that isn't in the hub. Usually in a game like Runescape, you want players to go around the game world and interact with the multiple methods that exist. When a hub exists, you run the risk of the player simply not doing that, rendering most content outside of the hub useless, and one of the big examples here is the World 84 Lumbridge market. So one of the ways I've talked about to make stuff more useful is to, instead of just focusing so much on XP, is to actually give additional incentives for players to interact with the methods themselves. This way a hub where players prefer to train at can exist, but you also give them incentives to skill outside of it. A good example to this is actually forestry in old school RuneScape. The Woodcutting Guild is your one-stop shop for woodcutting. However, you don't get forestry events in the Woodcutting Guild. As a result, players actually split throughout the world depending on the goal they have in mind, since it's still viable to train woodcutting without being in the Woodcutting Guild. In this case, the hub was purely for woodcutting, but something like Fort 4-in-3 can be overpowering for multiple skills, and that can be an issue, especially because RuneScape 3 does not have the same skill depthness, be it in options or rewards, as old school RuneScape has. I'm not saying that skilling with other players is bad, much the contrary, we should strive to have more social skilling, but too much of it can be a bad thing. It's important to maintain a certain equilibrium to not make the hub useless, but to also not make it so oppressive against other methods of the same skill. For the most part, our mode is a mode that only a few bosses in the game have. This mode usually introduces mechanics, increases the damage the boss deals, and the HP it has. These increases do not come in vain, however, since you also get the chance to get your hands on better loot. Now, why am I questioning if hard mode is worth it? Well, it's primarily due to the lack of consistency this game has towards hard mode. For some bosses, all that happens is that they gain more HP, others actually gain newer mechanics. However, there isn't consistency in the loot either, because for some bosses, all that happens is that you get more loot if you kill it in hard mode, but for others, there are exclusive rewards to be obtained from hard mode only. Which begs the question, why did you bother to make the boss normal mode to begin with? Now, there are reasons to make easier versions of the bosses. In fact, I think most bosses should have a practice mode like Archclaker, where you can just simply activate or deactivate mechanics at your own pace, the way you want. So, if I want a practice mode for bosses, what's my issue with bosses than just having a normal mode here? It's that you can get unique rewards from them. The issue with this is that it makes me question if they wanted the boss to be streakable or not, or to be beaten in hard mode or not. Like many times with hard mode, it's hard for me to grasp which version of the boss is the actual design. It feels like sometimes hard mode is useless to exist, while other times is the other way around. Wouldn't it be better to just present the boss as the normal intended design mode and then work backwards to implement a way to give players practice while also getting some loot for it? And I would love to actually get some consistency on that. For the vast majority of bosses, the difference in mechanics is not enough to make a player want to do a mode over the other. The rewards, however, are. So should all bosses have a normal mode and have all of their unique drops be available from normal mode but at a much rarer rate than in hard mode? Because if they don't, there is little to no incentive to do normal mode bosses. But if they do, are you sure you want to make the unique drops available to people without requiring them to beat the, I guess, quote-unquote proper version of the bosses as they were designed? Honestly, I think the best approach here is to just make a normal mode for bosses, the way they are meant to be fought, regardless if they are hard or not, and then implement an hard mode that, instead of having unique rewards, instead provides cosmetics and transmogs and things of the sorts, the same way that old school RuneScape does. You don't gate players from important gear progression, and those who want to go above and beyond still have something to aim for. Above everything, I really just wish there was some consistency between all of this. I just want to go into a boss and make sure I'm not wasting time doing one mode over the other, but also I want to feel like I'm not being punished with not getting some unique rewards, because again, I chose one mode over the other. Either just make all drops available from the get-go in both modes, but make them way rarer in the weaker mode, make a practice mode without the unique drops, and the normal mode be the actual challenge mode of the boss, the way you actually designed it, or make it so the boss doesn't have any hard mode to begin with. But just whatever you do, just make it consistent, because currently it's a bit weird to have some hard modes mean barely nothing, while others are essentially fundamental if you want to get some specific drops from them. Usually PvM encounters are focused on one thing: defeating the boss. You drain its HP bar before they drain yours. It's as simple as that. After you learn the boss, you start optimizing little things here and there to make it go faster and faster. While that is the standard, I kinda wanna explore a little bit the opposite aspect of it. What I essentially would like to try is like a sponge boss. Basically a boss that is immortal and cannot die, and instead of you actually killing it, you actually finish the fight by dying. And you know, like, okay, how would that actually work in terms of rewards? Well, I think that you could essentially have two loot modes, one to essentially just test DPS, so you would actually have to balance survivability with dealing damage, and another mode purely about how long you can actually survive. As the time goes on, the boss starts hitting harder, maybe having more special attacks and, you know, more of them frequently, faster, just essentially becoming harder to survive. The longer you survive, the more loot you would get. I get that usually players like to be in control of their own times when PvPing, and that speed kills are kind of a thing people aim for, but a concept where you grab that and turn it on its head honestly could be very interesting to try and put into the game. I'm not actually trying to tell Jagex to put this into the game, I'm not trying to design a boss here, I'm not trying to tell Jagex which mechanics they should have or what they should focus on. I'm more just putting the question out there of how players would actually engage with it if it were in the game. The game has defensive abilities, it has defensive oriented gear, but most PvM challenges are geared towards maximizing DPS, making tank armor usually a thing for noobs to learn how to PvM, or just overall much less useful than DPS armor, and thus also much cheaper. It's a curiosity of mine, and honestly I would love to see a design more focused on the survivability aspect of an encounter rather than making sure you kill it. Even survivability aspects like, for example, just seeing how many enemies you can kill before you die in a wave type minigame or something along those lines. Like Troll Invasion, but actually good for PvM. Anyway, I just think that with RuneScape 3 having more of a defensive side of things than old school RuneScape, I always wondered what it would be like to have PvM encounters more geared towards that, but at the end of the day, that's just a curiosity, nothing else. RuneScape is well known for their daily scape. Some of this daily escape comes in the form of distractions and diversions, or D&Ds. These D&Ds are usually minigame styled activities that give a big reward, usually related to XP. I find these actually fun, and it's unfortunate because they are limited in the amount of times you can partake in them. Most of them are limited to being daily, weekly or monthly. Something I've been supportive of is taking these D&Ds and simply transform them to minigames players can do at any time. I get the appeal of them being the fat XP rewards they give relative to the low effort, but that isn't very healthy for the game. Runescape 3 has always struggled massively with showering players with XP instead of giving them good training methods that could be used instead. Why train a skill when you can just kinda skip it? Obviously, not only is it bad for the game, as I've mentioned in other videos, it also isn't good due to the amount of daily escape that is actually involved in that as a balancing aspect. A simple fix would just be to allow D&Ds, such as, for example, Evil Tree, Sinkholes, Gothic caches, for example, just to be minigames instead. They can be essentially fun training methods, and honestly, they kinda do appear to be fun. In the case of, for example, Gothic caches. That could be a very good alternative way to train divination while getting your hands on exclusive rewards, like in this case, Gothic caches already has the divination XP outfit. Old school RuneScape mostly deals with skilling activities being useful in the plane of exclusive rewards. This way, players always have options on how to approach a skill while also feeling rewarded for it. In Runescape 3, unfortunately, since the biggest pull for these activities is the absolute fat XP drops, there is little to no incentive to do them unless they are your best XP per hour or, XP per method thing that you have. Having multiple skilling activities and methods be available is a good thing since it gives players options, but also they become useful through the exclusive rewards they give out. The rewards also increase the depthness and viability for every method, since there are always alternatives to train a skill through a specific method due to the method having its own reward incentive, and since every method has a different reward incentive, a lot of methods end up having that appeal. It's a shame so many of these daily escape methods are dailies because they are very fun standard methods of training the skills, methods which structurally fit the design of the skills they are inserted in. To see them kind of go to waste, be it because some people like me don't actually like doing daily escape and thus don't really engage with them too much, or be it because the people that do it simply due to the XP they give out, is such a shame. What also doesn't help is the time-gated nature they have. In terms of caches, they last 10 minutes, but are only available every hour. This happens due to the massive XP drops they give, but I would rather have a method that is fun, that gives XP balance to XP per hour, rather than giving a bunch of XP, but they only happen every hour, every day, and last 10 minutes. There is also a play limit of points, which realistically means you can do caches twice a day until you hit that limit. So on top of the hour limits, you also have the point limit. Make them last 10 minutes and make it so people can join every time an instance ends. Balance XP accordingly. Again, the methods would actually be much more fun as minigames with XP balanced accordingly than dailies you feel the need to do because they just shower you with XP. It's also worth noting that when I say minigame, I use the nomenclature in order to organize the change structurally, rather than them being considered actual minigames. For the most part, most daily escape activities are just methods that could be tweaked to do away with the time-gated restrictions they were imposed. In reality, they aren't minigames in the sense you need other players to do them, primarily because some of them actually reward players for collaborating, while minigames usually reward competition. These methods aren't a competition, and therefore the name minigame is purely to frame these specific methods into a system in the game, not because the gameplay patterns actually follow the minigame pattern. Fun methods will always pull players to train a skill, and there's an array of options you can offer to strengthen the choice of players when choosing that method, so no one ever feels like they are missing out. So I hope that in the future we start seeing this shift. And I cannot stress this enough, Cache would probably be one of the most fun divination training methods ever available in the skill since it was ever released. Make it into an actual minigame, Jagex. Inverted skill capes are a cosmetic that was a reward for taking part in Fresh Start Worlds, a game mode where everyone would start fresh with XP boosting multipliers. I have seen a fair few people asking for this to be brought back, the same way Leagues does in old school Runescape, and I think there is a certain misunderstanding of Leagues and Fresh Start Worlds. Fresh Start Worlds was specifically conceived to bring players into the game, or if you want to look at this more cynically, to boost membership numbers. The thing is, this wasn't exclusive to RuneScape 3, so Fresh Start Worlds also existed in old school RuneScape. Obviously, the first problem that this brings is the fact that, yet again, in RuneScape 3 we have a game mode that provides exclusive cosmetics with no chance to earn them back. Fresh Start Worlds are coming back, and with it, halos and inverted skill capes are now discontinued rares. I think these types of discontinued rares are bad for the game, but that is not the only problem I have with Fresh Start Worlds. Fresh Start Worlds as a game mode was nothing more than just normal RuneScape, but like with higher XP rates. While that might be fun for a bit, as a game mode it gets stale kinda fast, which is kind of what happened. Outside of the people going for the rewards, most people end up quitting earlier on, especially in old school RuneScape, since old school RuneScape did not even have boosted XP rates. Another problem is that you needed an entire new account to participate in them instead of being able to participate with your regular account. I get why the comparison is made. In a way, both are temporary game modes and both provide cosmetic rewards for the main game, but they are totally different. Leagues usually has a theme to them, and on top of that they also have restrictions and choices you need to make, both in terms of areas you unlock and in the relics you end up choosing. The focus of Leagues is also on completing tasks, not playing the game normally. This factor is what allows Leagues to be highly adaptable year after year, which is why despite 4 editions having gone down, with the 5th coming later this month, players still get very excited for them. Fresh Start Worlds simply doesn't have that. I would actually not want Fresh Start Worlds back, if anything, just do what old school RuneScape does, copy Leagues and have these rewards always available to buy with league points regardless of which league they belong to. It's actually interesting that, just like with Yak Cosmetics, Jagex said that they would bring this back to be obtainable in game, yet they still aren't. This is more of a general issue, but the amount of loose ends and rough edges RuneScape 3 has, like this one, bodes badly for the game. Jagex should be more on top of their game, much like old school RuneScape is, to make sure that even these small but important issues are taken care of satisfactorily, instead of just accumulating over the years, which makes the game just look very disorientated. In part, I can't blame the players for wanting Fresh Start Worlds back, since it was Jagex's that introduced them as a way to get the inverted skill capes, so if players want the inverted skill capes, it makes sense for them to ask for another Fresh Start World. The culture that RuneScape 3 players have towards the game and the way you go about unlocking things was established by Jagex, and it's their responsibility to do players right and establish an healthier and more communicative culture between them and the players, especially when it comes to taking players' feedback on this case. One of the arguments I see constantly from RuneScape 3 is that Jagex doesn't really know how to make their game great. Personally, I find this argument a bit weird and quite dismissive of the knowledge and talent that the developers have. While I do think there are things that Jagex could address, and while I do think there are mistakes they make, it's straight up bizarre to see players paint Jagex as this bunch of dumbasses that can't figure out why someone would want to kill a boss over the other. I think that this type of culture is one that we really don't need in the game, and yet it's one I see being actually quite prevalent in a lot of aspects of the game. So, we have to self-reflect a bit here. Is it that Jagex does everything in their power to kill their very big source of income, or is it that maybe players are inflating the knowledge they have on how to design and run an MMORPG? Personally, I think it's the latter. When it comes to long-running games, it will always be a mistake to assume one side is much dumber than the other. A symbiotic relationship is needed to watch it succeed. And here comes the truth that I think most RuneScape players simply don't want to accept. A lot of the decisions that Jagex makes, they do so because the community asks for it. I'm not saying you specifically asked for it, But given that feedback is important for RuneScape, it's clear as day that a lot of the changes the team ends up making are done so to accumulate parts of the player base. And in RuneScape 3, this is never going to be understood by some players due to them having a different perception that their way of playing is the only right way of playing. Let me be clear, there's a huge difference between designing a game and playing a game. I think RuneScape 3 players oftentimes conflate both. It's a normal bias people tend to have. If I spend thousands of hours doing this thing, that means I also know how to make it. And let me tell you, this isn't always true. Not only do both things require different skill sets, when you play the game for so long you end up finding your own playstyle. A playstyle you will always be biased to, and anything that goes against it is wrong. This, however, is not how communities function. Communities have a lot of different playstyles, and it's important to understand them and be respectful of them. Ultimately, I think there is an issue with RuneScape 3 players thinking they know more about making the game than they actually do. It's fine to want the game to be better, but there's always the question that you are going to have to ask yourself. Do I want this change because I perceive it being good due to my experience with the game, or do I want this change because I perceive it being good for everyone playing the game? Those two things are entirely different, and while using your experience to inform what you know about the game is good, it's important to not let it be mixed with what you think players want. It's specifically hard to side with players on this one when a lot of the things that would make the game better long term are actually shunned upon, disregarded, or just blatantly ignored. Players most of the times want things that solely benefit them and cater to them. This is why I'm always surprised at seeing people being against the daily challenges due to the dailyscape aspect, and yet when people ask or talk about them being removed, players get really upset. This is a mere example I'm giving, but you could find many more. Old school RuneScape puts so much effort into updates that currently benefit no one in the community, and yet they are fundamental to building a foundation for the future players that will eventually play the game. They bother to introduce a Slayer quest and a Slayer mob in Drainer. They bother to change the agility level requirement in Drainer from level 10 to level 1. They bother to add a quest that basically explains what a clue scroll is that actually leads them to Zea, which is the entire new continent. This is dev time that currently doesn't really benefit anyone in the game, and yet it's fundamental for the future players that are going to be coming into the game. This is fundamental changes for the onboarding new player experience. In RuneScape 3, I hear a lot of talk about early game experience and how Jagex should pay attention to it, and yet, when Jagex does put dev time into it, players complain that that dev time is being wasted on dead content and that they aren't being catered towards. There is a lot of bias in RuneScape 3, and I don't mean this section to sound like you should never give your feedback to Jagex. What I'm trying to say is that players should be much more open to question themselves and what they think is good for the game. To simply put, and to close out this section, the amount of ego I see from RuneScape 3 players when it comes to game design is immense, when most of the times these players don't actually know about designing the game, but simply know about playing them. That wouldn't be an issue if they merely provided feedback, but the toxicity towards JMods and their apparent quote-unquote lack of knowledge is something I heavily dislike, especially when done in a very smug way to put JMods down and elevate your own ego. Let's face it, you don't know how to design a game. Your feedback is fundamental for Jagex to understand how to develop the game, but let's not sit here and pretend that the reason as to why the game is failing is purely because Jagex just does not know anything when it comes to it. Secret Santa is a Christmas activity where you donate items or GP and it will go to another random person that claims a gift. It's all done through a NPC, so no one actually knows who gets it. I love this concept, but I do think it could do with some minor changes. While I get that they don't want to restrict donations to people who can afford to actually donate, I think that should actually be a thing. What ends up happening most of the times is that when you are claiming a gift, you get a Christmas event food, and honestly, that really isn't exciting. I get that no matter what you do, players will always try to be greedy and take advantage of the system, but at least it doesn't feel completely useless to donate like it felt to me. By the end of the event, not only did I not bother donating anymore since I already had the titles, but I also didn't bother claiming anything since I knew I wasn't getting anything exciting. Another thing you can do is simply make it so the rewards themselves get spread out, get donations for an entire day and then give them out in the next day based on expected claims. I would rather get something worth 1k that was actually part of another donation that gets some generic event food due to the pool being completely dry, because you can claim every 2 hours and you don't actually need to donate to claim gifts. Also, make claiming gifts a daily activity rather than every 2 hours. This would help equilibrate the pool of rewards offered with those claimed. Lastly, give players a random chance to obtain rare cosmetics from the act of donating. You can scale it up to a certain value of max chance, but just something extra for players to feel like they should donate. I don't like FOMO cosmetics too much, but I think that in this situation it's somewhat justified. You could even offer any cosmetic from any seasonal event throughout that year as an extra incentive, so rather than just rolling Christmas event item cosmetics, you would actually roll any cosmetic from the entire year. Overall, I like the initiative, but I do feel like it needs some tweaks in order to be a bit more exciting, because I think right now, yeah, it's really not that exciting. So yeah, I think that a lot of these changes would actually do a lot to help the event and go a long way to make it much better. Quests have been a staple of Runescape throughout the years, with little room to improve on things that they already excelled at, like, you know, the narrative of Dragon Slayer, the exploration of Monkey Madness, or the fun puzzles of Elemental Workshop. Jagex decided to go for the quality of life improvements, and they have been very successful at them. For one, quests nowadays have NPCs offering to teleport you to places you need to go, provided you have them unlocked. It is a one-time teleport, but a nice quality of life update for people going through the quests, makes them less of an hassle and makes traversing the game while doing the quests much easier. Secondly, we have NPCs giving you items that you actually need for that part of the quest. Aside from the fact I feel like maybe items in game should have a purpose always, even if it's just for a quest, this is a good thing. It removes the annoyance of players having to bank and come back with specific items just because this part of quest specifically requires them. Most of them aren't worth that much anyway, so not much loss. Another quality of life thing I liked a lot is that newer quests strike out text options you already selected and went through. It's something very small, but prevents forgetting that you already went through it, so you don't need to click it again due to bad memory or something. It's a small thing, but it's immensely welcomed. And lastly, and this is something that I saw over at Runescape 3, it's quest symbols just out on the world. While I sort of dislike these symbols due to how immersion breaking they actually are very useful gameplay wise, since to me, in order to continue the quest in a specific area for example, I can now just better see where I need to go specifically, and the game has an easier time telling the player that they were changed to an instance version of the map, since you have to go and actually interact with that quest symbol rather than just kind of almost being randomly teleported in, not knowing where the edges of the instance are. Overall, very good job from Jagex. I love seeing one of the best parts of the game being improved even further, even if most of these things are very small in nature. So yeah, I kinda just wanted to talk about these things. Nothing to say of note here, but yeah, I just wanted to let you know about them. Disappointment is a word in the dictionary. I think. I don't actually read the dictionary, so I won't actually... I mean, who reads the dictionary? Anyway, seasonal events have been a mixed bag as far as RuneScape 3 goes. For the most part, the most iconic seasonal event moments have always been quests. These, you know, neat little things have been what most people log in to do. In RuneScape 3, they disappeared for a few years in favor of having XP-related activities. That is a development I very much disliked. These led to so many seasonal events to a point where you wouldn't even be able to log in to the game without having some event currency related thing going on, even if there wasn't an actual seasonal holiday currently present, I guess, in real life, if you wanna go like that. Nowadays, however, it tends to be a mix of both, and honestly, I kinda don't mind it. The little quest is always what I will prefer, and while I don't mind XP activities, I think there's something to be said about them. Personally, I think they were kinda bad for the game from the perspective that we encourage players to take part on the event, not because they find it fun, but rather because it's an easy way to AFK an otherwise active skill and get some free XP. The point of seasonal events should always be fun above everything, and giving out XP like this seems such a low effort way to engage players with the event. With that being said, at the same time, I don't mind that too much right now. While ideally they would not exist, I understand why they were introduced, and I understand how the mentality of players nowadays got affected by them, so them existing isn't entirely bad. The focal point is that they are very much optional, as the XP they give isn't that much better than engaging with the skills normally, nor do you actually get the rewards you would normally would. The exception being the masks and the pumpkin mask you get from the Halloween event. Again, I think these events should focus more on being fun rather than giving out rewards that can be useful in gameplay. We already get cosmetics from them, XP and a fun activity usually, and such. In my view, there's no need to overload them. I get it, you spend that time on it, so you want players to take part, but first and foremost, the event should be fun. The moment you achieve that, there will never be a worry, and you won't need to bait people with stuff that is useful outside of the event for them to partake in it. However, these past few months, Jagex has introduced repeatable activities from these seasonal events. And in my case, what I actually love is the Mazy Maze. I honestly think it's very fun. I have grinded it out quite a bit. Honestly, with how much effort was put into it, it's a shame it actually won't be available after the event ends. And again, that's a shame because this type of activities are, in my opinion, the highlights of seasonal events. You know, especially this maze. Again, I cannot stress enough how fun this maze actually is. It's really fun, it has rewards, and honestly makes me engage with the event as a whole. As far as the seasonal stuff goes, I think it's best we got out of everything so far, honestly. This Halloween event has honestly smashed my expectations of what I had for RuneScape 3. For the past few years I haven't been engaging with these events too much, but this one, in my opinion, is the best one we've had in like the past 5 years easily. And honestly, I wish Jagex would actually invest more in these activities. In fact, I actually hope the maze stays after the event is over. You can still take away the rewards the bags offer, or maybe just have the bags offer exclusive season tokens or the likes, while you still maintain the chance to get the rare cosmetics from it. This way the seasonal events are fun, but the work invested into them isn't wasted, while also reducing the dependency on exorbitant rewards to hook players in. Regarding all of this, I'm honestly glad to have been wrong. I thought Jagex could have not gotten any better about the events and thought that they would just get worse and worse to the point where, you know, we would have a new currency event every 2 weeks that would value not just in-game items but also bait players into doing them due to the explosive FOMO rewards. With that said, I think they could still be better somewhat, but as far as we got them, we have a fun seasonal quest, fun repeatable activities, AFK activities that we can engage in, all while earning tokens to get our hands on previous year's rewards, and all of that in a new hub that is gonna come back year after year and expand year after year. Cosmetics have become a huge part of the RuneScape experience. With 20 years of them, it's only fair that you would be able to get them from multiple sources. However, nowadays that has kinda turned into a bit of an issue. First, I want to tackle the problematic of multiple types of cosmetics. For the most part, Jagex has been good at making most of them available through the customization window. However, the customization window is kind of in a bad state, the UI is clanking, obtuse, and honestly overall not very smooth in terms of the experience it provides, especially when considering some of the bags you get there on the character preview. This is the first thing that in my opinion needs to be looked at when it comes to anything cosmetic related. Secondly, I find it a bit weird that Jagex still does not have a way to directly offer cosmetics to other players, nor giving players the ability to buy premium paid cosmetics through players in-game. Which is why I created the cosmetic token. This token works pretty much the same as a bond, but for premium cosmetics instead. You buy it and then you can sell it on the GE, claim it for premium cosmetics, or give the token to another player so they can unlock a premium cosmetic themselves. You can charge multiple tokens if you see that a cosmetic has to get much more work than previous ones. This way you could actually obtain them in-game and you would eliminate the need for rune coins unless you want to sell players direct XP, but you know, as long as treasure enter is in the game, I very much doubt that is a path that you'll pursue. It also eliminates the FOMO problem, as this token is the equivalent to any premium cosmetic, so players won't need to worry when previous cosmetics were released to get their hands on them. One place to get all of the premium cosmetics currently existing in the game. You could also trade these tokens for keepsake keys if you wanted, since it's also related to cosmetic, or loyalty points if you are not going to be bothered reworking that part of the game. Outside of premium cosmetics, you can lock cosmetics through gameplay, and this is a bit weird as well, primarily because yet again, there isn't a tidy, neat UI that you can click on that actually tells you all of the cosmetics you can unlock and where. It's all mixed in the same sack, and the info is not properly displayed. As an example of these are the tokens that, for example, you can unlock in certain seasonal events. The fact that most tokens themselves are tradable in the GE and thus obtainable by everyone is good. However, there isn't a way to show that. Like, if I open, the seasonal reward menu of Halloween right now, with the cosmetic tokens, the only way I can check if I actually have them unlocked is to open the customization tab, search for the name, and then close the tab and do the same for pretty much every other token. A little marker on the corner of the info window would actually help smoothen things out, maybe an examine option that would tell you that you already own this token or you already have it unlocked, something along the lines to make it a little bit smoother to understand which tokens you already have and which ones you don't. Speaking of set cosmetics, however, most of them sucks when it comes to being obtained. You see, these tokens come from seasonal events mostly, and while, yes, Jagex has been better at bringing older cosmetics back year after year, and while that's a step in the right direction, they also seem to love to continuously create cosmetic rares for no apparent reason. The reason why these are rares is simply because of the rarity mixed with the FOMO nature of the limited time events they appear to come from. Personally, I feel there's no need for that. Cosmetics are meant to be enjoyed by people, and when it comes to the premium ones, I get it. It's fine that, they are paid and thus not everyone will have them. But if they are earnable in-game, why do you need them to be so rare? This never made sense with party ads, and it will never make sense with any new cosmetic they make ultra rare, like the new Scythe Pet cosmetic for example. FOMO cosmetics are bad. But FOMO earnable in-game cosmetics are somehow worse, since there is literally zero good design reason for them to be limited other than wanting them to be valued a lot of GP. And it's honestly a shame, because things like the Mazy Maze are really fun to take part in. My suggestion is to leave these activities available post-season so players can still have fun while being able to get the cosmetics that such activities offer. This is exclusive to the seasonal tokens you earn through events, such is the case of the Halloween event that, this activity is currently tied to. And lastly, I would also get rid of the Ottoman store. It has had some cosmetics over the years, however the way you earn Ottomans is mostly through engaging with Treasure Hunter, which isn't a good way to make cosmetics earnable, and Treasure Hunter shouldn't have any cosmetics either, especially FOMO ones at that, even though it has had some pretty rare ones. If everything I've been saying is a critique against FOMO cosmetics being made rare for no reason, that's even worse when gambling money is involved. Ultimately, if you are going to be introducing cosmetics like this, cosmetics that are tradable, make them always obtainable as well. You don't need to input an artificial scarcity where you can only get them from one event ever in your entire lifetime. Dies have maintained a good price over the years, and Jagex has never needed to establish a clue cooldown for how many you can complete a day, so just let us have the damn cosmetics that are already free to obtain in the game anyway. Yak Track. It's a battle pass type system that made its way into the game. While at first it got a lukewarm reception, by its 14th edition players were more than done with it. That would be the last track giving way to Hero Pass, the next iteration of the battle pass system in Runescape. While back then people hating Yak Track was regular, since time has passed plenty of players have yearned for its return. And I think this is simply due to not remembering how bad the track was and only remembering the good parts. Yak Track had several problems, and you know what? I'm gonna spare you the time and just say that if you want to know them, check out my video that I made on it. It's actually the first content discussion that I've ever uploaded on the channel, so you can check it out. However, despite the flooding of cosmetics, the 150 hours of skill and kill you have to actually do to complete all of the tasks, and the skilling tasks actually sometimes taking longer and longer than the skill and kill counterparts, especially due to requiring higher skill levels, some players seem to enjoy it. So, I mean, let's explore why that is. And the answer is actually very simple. Players would actually not miss the grind of the Yak tracks, or the FOMO part of it, since it was a limited time event. No, what the players miss is that it gave them direction. Something that Runescape 3 struggles with is the fact that there's a lot of content you can engage with. Sometimes, this amount of choice paralyzes players, and they end up not actually doing anything. So, what players actually miss from the track is a task system that can give them direction, a task system that can essentially tell them what to do. Sometimes the simple act of telling players to go do something can cause them to not want to do that thing, but allows them to be presented with an option, and being presented with an option means that they can either accept that option or reject that option. With that knowledge, instead of wishing Yak track to come back, what we can actually do is just create that system. You don't need anything too fancy for a start. Simply grab some Yak track tasks, grab some bingo tasks that were made by the players in the community, create a NPC that gives you set tasks, and when you complete them, you get tokens to spend on that NPC store, which is all of the Hero Pass and Yak track cosmetics. Despite the fact that Jagex said they would make all Yak track cosmetics available after it was removed, they still haven't done so, and here it's the perfect opportunity, a task system for players to enjoy and a way to offer set cosmetics to players without them being FOMO. You can further this system by simply having different tasks be based on PVM bosses, much like how Reaper tasks work sort of thing, skilling challenges, or even special tasks like quest completions. What you want is a system that can easily give people something to do, that is repeatable and as rewards, in this case cosmetics. It fits perfectly and can in the future be used as a blueprint system for bingo, which devs are already working on old school RuneScape, and I'm quite excited for it. You can also peek at the artisan dev blogs from old school RuneScape. This was the first proposed skill there, and it's essentially described as a Slayer but for skilling. Again, you don't need to go as fancy as that, but should give you an idea of the task system that players can engage with to give them direction and what type of tasks you can actually introduce in them. So to recap, players don't actually miss Yak track or Hero Pass for that matter, they just miss having a system that gave them direction in a game without any stakes involved. Remember Ottomans, with an H? Yeah, well, by the time this video came out, they have been used again. I hope, so they haven't been forgotten. I hope. But it's still bad to have them. If you're not aware, Ottomans are a currency similar to Ottomans, the only difference being that you can only earn them through Treasure Enter during Halloween. So they are basically Ottomans, but the FOMO version of it. So they managed to somehow make a currency that can only be earned through Treasure Enter promotions, but FOMO? So it's a FOMO version of FOMO, of gambling. I don't even fucking... whatever, look, aside the fact that this doesn't really make me feel super good about the whole we are listening and doing something about Treasure Enter, they're also just really fucking bad as a whole. Because, you see, it's already bad that they are FOMO and you can only earn them during the season. But did you know that you can also only spend them during the season? Yep, that's right, for you to open the fucking store, the Ottoman store, the one with an H, you can only do so when the fucking event in Treasure Enter is active, where you can earn them. If it's not active, too bad if you have leftovers, you cannot open the fucking store for some reason. But wait, because it gets even fucking better. Because the free keys are far from being able to earn all of the cosmetic from the Ottoman stores. But even if they were, you cannot take the fucking Ottomans off your currency pouch without choosing to destroy them. So either they show up whenever you click the currency pouch, or you take them out and destroy them. And the worst part is that they're not the only ones. They somehow fucking manage to have more FOMO Ottoman currencies. Seriously, they have Ottomans, and they have Artmans. At least as far as I have them. And I have had them for years, so I don't even know which new ones they came up with. Like, I swear I'm not trying to be a hater, but man, when it comes to this, I just don't understand why they are needed, aside from the fact that Jagex just wants to maximize profits through exploiting their player base. This entire thing does raise a good point. You see, the excuse that Squill of Fortune and Treasure Hunter always had, that Jagex always gave, was that they were simply trying to give players the ability to pay to skip levels and grinds that players didn't like. Now, aside the fact that they could just very easily directly sell XP to players without all of the gambling predatory system being involved, the existence of these Ottoman currencies, especially the FOMO ones, does mean that Jagex is more than willing to put FOMO cosmetics behind gambling systems. And this is bad because it sets such a bad precedent that anything can end up there. We went from XP to now limited gambling cosmetics to, I mean, who the fuck knows in the future? Maybe in the future we'll get buffs like the ones in Hero Pass. It's incredibly bad for the game that these exist and that we are setting a precedent on them. And honestly, it speaks to the amount of currencies and lack of care Jagex has had when it comes to the monetization of the game, making things unnecessarily obtuse and confusing, allowing players to pay for things Jagex themselves should just offer, and not having a unified way of monetizing the game, blurring the line between monetization and gameplay, all of which will become apparent later in the video. I'm totally not using foreshadow here. The Solomon store used to be the primary monetized store that Jagex used. It's still in use today, although its existence shows a clear problem Jagex has. They create stuff to be monetized, and then kinda just forget it exists. While I could be talking about the Solomon store, in general I just think that Jagex just needs a centralized way to sell anything that is cosmetic related. While the marketplace is there, it doesn't actually offer everything the Solomon store has, which just further contributes to the clutter the game has instead of actually cleaning it up. What I want to focus, however, are the consumables that are offered in the Solomon store. These feel like they were created at another time entirely and completely forgotten about. Outside of the buffs autos provide and the keepsake keys, the Solomon store also offers equipment recallers as well as player skin recallers. And my question is, why? If I buy an item using real money, shouldn't I possess the ability to simply change its colors? Or then, simply sell packs of outfits with different color schemes? I would rather simply have the ability to do so after I bought a cosmetic, but either one of those would be way more simple than what we have at the moment. I don't even know how many people know that, or have the knowledge that you can actually do these things. As for the skin recolors, why they aren't available in-game is beyond me, but worse is the fact that they aren't a one-time unlock. Most cosmetics are single buy, permanent unlock. Why is this different? The discombobulation of the store and its monetized parts is bad, but it's even worse when you consider monetization is what Jagex usually pays most attention to. But wait! Those are not all the consumables that the store actually has. We also have pet food for legendary pets, which is another system I dislike, but I don't want to get into it right now, especially because, of course, that these cost fucking rune coins. On top of that, there's also items to boost the clan citadel, which is a shame because a lot could be done to better integrate the citadel into the gameplay of clans. There's also a challenge gym, which makes stuff very hard to fucking click on a crowded area due to how fucking big they are, and yet again, shouldn't this be a system just by itself in the game, integrated into the gameplay, rather than being something you buy with rune coins? And then we have the Dwarven Challenge Barrel, a barrel you can buy and attack for 3 minutes that will give you the highest output of damage your character can have. At least according to the fucking wiki, this item is so badly explained on the store that I didn't even know what it did or that it was a thing. And lastly, we have a party box. A box containing partying related items such as the music box, cake and party horns. Again, why isn't this just in the game? And all of these leads me to the main point of this section. Why are all of these things in the store to begin with? Some of them are sold through loyalty points, so it's not like Jagex is making loads of cash with it, but most of them can easily be systems of rewards that are integrated in the game itself, things that don't need to be sold. The party box can be sold by Party Pete at the Falador party room, the dwarven barrel can be sold by dwarfs north of Falador, the skin recolors can easily be placed in the character customization menu or at the makeover mage, the equipment recolor should just come with the fucking equipment you already paid real money for, and legendary pets should just be obtainable in-game and be purely cosmetic, thus removing the food from the store as well. This entire store feels like something taken from 2010. Things that were added to monetize the game, but just forgotten about. And looking at how much stuff the store has, no wonder the game is spaghetti code. Yeah, I bet it's hard to add new colors to the makeover mage, when there's 100 other ways your character can change the fucking skin color. The entire store makes me feel like I'm playing a Gameforge game. This store sells anything you need, as long as you're willing to spend money for it. I mean, ultimately, who cares about actually earning anything in-game anymore? And to hone this point even further, you can buy bank boosters. Old school Runescape has you spending GP on them, so it's something that you actually earn in-game, something to do with your extra GP. Meanwhile, Runescape 3 makes you pay real money for them. Yet again, if you are willing to pay, they are willing to monetize it. And this lack of attention, or willfully upholding the store without any changes and revisions, just shows the absolute lack of polish some parts of the game have. And it's a real shame. Like, if you are going to monetize stuff, at least make sure that your fucking monetization makes sense and it's clear to the players. Me going over the consumables is just an example of the bigger issue that is how discombobulated the monetization systems in the game feel as a whole. This is how you make money, and it feels like it doesn't really matter how you make it as long as the option for people to spend money is there. I can't believe I'm saying this, but take care of how you present your own product to people that are going to be buying it. Looking at this entire store makes me feel less hopeful, not just in the removal of Treasure Hunter, but the future monetization of the game as a whole. Monetization of the game is how you make money. This is what you pay most attention to, and if this is what you pay most attention to, I'm starting to worry for the rest of the parts of the game. Legendary pets are pets that provide bonuses to you. While I'm not entirely opposed to the idea, especially considering that pets like Didymus exist, these are small things that should just be earnable in-game. It makes zero sense to me to have a system where pets can assist a player without it being fleshed out. This also only applies to the legendary pets, as most pets in the game are cosmetic in nature. It's very bizarre to provide paid pets that, instead of just being cosmetics, they actually offer gameplay advantages. Yet again, as I said previously, it shows a lack of quality Jagex towards the monetization of their own game. You know, the most important part of any product that keeps the lights on. Legendary pets that have gameplay advantages come right from the era of the game where, yet again, as long as you are willing to pay for it, you get advantages other players don't have. I get this is something that comes from the sellout era of the game, but yet again, if selling cosmetics through the store is how you make money, shouldn't you take good care of how it looks and comes across? And granted, while you can obtain legendary pets in-game, or at least you could through the Ottoman store a while ago, I'm not so sure if you can, at least they don't show up to me anymore. It still doesn't make much sense to have such an underdeveloped system in the game that, yet again, only applies to legendary pets. Either rework these into a proper system, or make legendary pets purely cosmetic. You shouldn't need to pay for a pet to have the conveniences of the skills they offer. And remember, there's food you can buy for your legendary pet from the Solomon store, and it costs rune coins. Again, I'm unsure if I'm playing a weird version of Metin 2 or fucking RuneScape. And the thing is, you can salvage some ideas from the taming poll or the taming skill proposition they did in old school RuneScape and actually make this entire thing into an actual system integrated with the game. Jagex, I'm just asking you to put some effort into the game, especially when it comes to monetization, which is the part you give the shit most about. I can't believe I'm saying this, but put effort into taking care of the monetization of the game. Auras are items that provide bonus to your gameplay for a limited amount of time. They can be anywhere from completely useless to fundamental to your gameplay. However, auras also present their fair share of issues. The first one is that most auras are only unlockable through the loyalty store. While I don't mind the loyalty store concept in general, although I do think it's not the best to have 1,000 different stores in the game, when you can buy gameplay related items, then it becomes problematic. The way you obtain loyalty points is by paying for membership and just being a member continuously, thus creating a time gate for useful gameplay boosts, since you will need to wait in order to obtain them. Jagex has been getting a bit better about this, as there are some auras you can obtain through gameplay, however, most of them are just off limits. This creates a gate for people who are new to the game, and people who are veterans might spend their points on cosmetics instead, not knowing that auras exist, or which ones are useful. Gameplay boosts like this simply should not rely on time gates to be obtained, especially when they involve monetization. Another issue that auras present is the limited gameplay they offer. With how big some of the buffs are, they actually end up gating players to specific types of content rather than giving players options on how to approach different encounters. A thing I see fairly frequently is that players grinding a boss for a single hour, and then they feel like they can't do that boss anymore due to not being as efficient or not being as reliable due to the aura running out. This makes using auras more of a time-gated must if you want to use or if you want to take advantage of them, rather than making auras feel like an extra boost you can pursue if you want. A change that could easily be enacted here to prevent this is making the auras be charged with energy rather than being time-based. Something simple like requiring divine energy would do the trick. They should work more like god books, since in that line of balancing they are a thing that you can use charges if you want to get a boost, but it's not such a must part of gameplay. This also means balancing auras to make them less oppressive, to the point where it feels incredibly, or to the point where it doesn't feel incredibly bad if you are not using one. Lastly, some auras seem to fit much better as an item with charges rather than time-based. Let's take an example, the Dedicated Slayer. This is an aura that makes it so there's a chance your Slayer monster does not count towards your task. In old school Runescape, this effect exists. However, it is done under these slaughter bracelets. It's a desired effect due to how much Slayer XP some tasks give. It also gave us a use for silver jewelry and topaz in this case. You also have the Expeditious bracelet, which has the opposite effect. There's a chance your kill counts as 2 towards your task due to how undesirable some tasks are. The point is that these are things you can choose to take with you on your Slayer tasks, and since they are items with charges, there's not a time pressure that comes into them being useful or not. Most of the times, these types of auras are not used in RuneScape 3 simply due to the fact that you can only have one aura active at any time, and the offensive ones that boost damage tend to have much higher priority. If some of these auras simply became items, players have more choice on how to approach certain situations. They also present a good opportunity to deepen the pool of opportunities that skilling offers, since you now have more skilling options, for example in old school RuneScape, with crafting, with the gemstones below sapphire, and with silver bars. As of note, some of the auras are completely outdated due to archaeology rewards, for example, just generally EOC, since auras were actually introduced before EOC, believe it or not, or just they're overall not worth it due to the limitations of cooldown and activation. One of the takes that I see constantly is that speedrunning worlds are bad because they barely have any players logged in at any time. Usually no other criticism is thrown at it, just a good update and a screenshot of a player count in those worlds. I already talked about this in my No Monkey video like a year ago I think, but I will always take the opportunity to educate people on this, even though no one actually forwards any good arguments other than low player count equals waste of dev time. Let's start at the beginning, with the thing that any player needs to remember about this game. Not every piece of content needs to be constantly popular to have been useful or healthy for the game. A concept I talked about a while ago was how sometimes trees in RuneScape, for example, exist purely to be part of the scenery and contribute to the immersion. Just because no one might train at that specific tree, it doesn't mean it's not doing anything in the game. This concept is something a lot of players seem to have trouble understanding, but it's fundamental if you want to have any fruitful discussion. With that out of the way, let's try and understand the context for speedrunning worlds. Speedrunning in RuneScape has always been a thing, even if niche. One of the things that has been quite popular has been quest speedrunning. So Jagex saw this niche and decided to create something for them in the form of speedrunning worlds. They would allow for a much easier way of both resetting without, needing to go through the hassle of creating an entire new account, but also put everyone under the same rules. Do I think it's perfect? No, but it's important to acknowledge that there are people still participating in it. Furthermore, something that isn't talked about nearly enough with speedrunning worlds is that they did a very good thing. They laid the foundation for any future speedrunning related endeavors. More quests to speedrun, maybe skills like King of the Skill, some PvM bosses. Regardless of the topic, the foundation is there, the speedrunning worlds already exist, meaning people can easily speedrun things in general. Another point is that some people just like to replay quests, especially certain bosses, and guess what? This is entirely possible with these worlds. But at the end of the day, speedrunning is a niche thing, regardless if it's quests or PvM. Unless we are talking about Minecraft or Super Mario 64, the vast majority of games simply do not have big communities taking part in the hobby as a continuum, at the same time. Some come, some go. In fact, I'm surprised to see that there's always a couple of people in the speedrunning worlds. Even then, however, it's important to sometimes devote that time to things that only niche communities are going to engage with. Lastly, this entire argument is a bit bizarre to be had today. Not only was the last update done to these speedrunning worlds over a year and a half ago, if my twig is to be remembered, this year alone of 2024, we had a run at GDQ, the biggest speedrunning event of the year, and a run at ESA, the second biggest speedrunning event of the year. On top of that, ESA already hosted yet another old-school Runescape speedrunning run prior to this one. Attention on old-school speedrunning is there, even if that doesn't translate to worlds having constant 1,000 players each. One last thing I'll say about this is that the permanent Deadman mode worlds never really has more than 50 people, and contrary to speedrunning worlds, they do require more documentation since changes in the main game also apply there. This isn't to say that I think that the permanent DMM worlds is bad or a waste of dev time. In fact, much the contrary. We have seen time and time again how niche communities develop over the years and how good that is for the game. After the first month of the first league, the worlds were practically dead. Leagues nowadays is one of the biggest events of the year. Ultimate Ironman was introduced alongside Ironman mode. Not only is Ironman mode huge nowadays, Ultimate Ironman modes have taken over especially the YouTube side of things and are much less of a rarity than when they were when the game mode was first introduced. Seasonal events tend to die days after being released, yet it's a thing that so many people enjoy that players would be more upset if they didn't do them. Just because a piece of content doesn't remain popular or is never popular doesn't mean it's harmful for the game. But I'll give people a little something. How to improve speedrunning worlds. Expand on what they offer. To simply put, there's a lot that you can do with these worlds, from, again, King of the Skill, PvM challenges, literally anything you want. The potential is there, and so is the foundation. And even if they don't do anything with it, the amount of players that over the years will engage with it is already a win. Old School Runescape is a game made of niches. We shouldn't throw them under the curb purely because they are not popular or we don't like them, especially considering how certain things can become popular or be really popular and be really harmful for the game. Popularity does not necessarily equate with success or health for the game. And that is it from me. It was 24 topics if you didn't count them, but yeah, a lot of these they were just opinions I had, as in like, they were just small things that I wanted to explain to people. Others were things that I wanted to discuss, but I didn't have a proper full video to discuss them, so I just decided throw them all into one video, just to make it really long, multiple topics, and just have people be able to listen to it without spamming the channel with like a minute-long video because I wanted to like talk about legendary pets or something. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video someday. I don't know when, but someday.